More than 1,300 people are now confirmed dead following Friday's earthquake and tsunami on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi. Rescue workers have found the bodies of 34 Bible students after their church was hit by a mudslide. 52 of them are still missing. Rescuers are having to carry victims' bodies for an hour and a half through thick mud to get to ambulances. The UN says there are nearly 200,000 people in urgent need of help. There's still no power and not enough fresh water or food. Aid is slowly arriving, but a lot more is needed.
We
need a lot of tents, blankets, mattresses and beds, as well as food, drinks, medical services, clean water, sanitation, toilets, trauma counsellors and clothes. We still need a lot of these things to help the refugees.
Well, let's just tell you about this man, Antonius Agong. He was a 21-year-old air traffic controller. He died in the earthquake on Friday, and he's been called a hero because he didn't leave his post at the air traffic control tower until the final passenger plane had taken off safely. Now we've heard from the pilot of that plane, the very last to leave before the quake hit.
He stayed in his positions until the very last of my departure, and until the tower was shaking very bad. And then once he makes sure that the aircraft departed safely, then he jumped from the tower to the lower level. That's what happened when he broke his arm and his legs. I think he did a very heroic actions. He did his job professionally, and I believe so that he should be honored. I call him my guardian angels.
Well, our correspondent Jonathan Head is in Palu. Here is his report.
3 days under the ruins of an office building, but he's alive. Few of the victims have been as lucky as this 38-year-old man, pulled out after a 3-hour rescue operation. Many more are still buried in these impossible mountains of rubble. In the city centre, they're trying to open some of the blocked roads. But from the air you can see what the Indonesian government is up against. This is the village of Balaroa, which was literally swallowed by the liquefying ground churned up by the earthquake. And here in Petobo, they were hit by a mudslide.
Sometimes it seems this city's been hit by a whole series of catastrophes, not just the earthquake and the tsunami, but in this neighbourhood, a sea of mud that fell down the mountain and has buried all of the houses right up to halfway, and some of the inhabitants too.
Made Mastro has come back with his youngest son to check what's left of his home. They had a narrow escape. The mud came down right after the earthquake, he told me. 3 or 4 minutes later, he and his family just ran with only the clothes they were wearing. Made and his neighbours have salvaged what they can, but it isn't much. They need it, and they're not getting it yet. So Palu's inhabitants are taking matters into their own hands. Here, trying to break into a small supermarket, and then being driven back by police officers who seemed afraid of being overrun. 1 hour later, though, the police relented, and the crowd poured into the shop. They did make a token effort to stop non-essential items being looted, but a government unable to help most of these earthquake victims can't really stop them helping themselves. The first real sign of order we saw, this extraordinary line for petrol, each bottle with its own queue number, while its owners sit in the shade for the long hours they'll have to wait. Jonathan Head, BBC News, Palu, Indonesia.
And there's lots more on the situation in Indonesia on our website, BBC.